Hi guys, so today I'm going to be sharing with you my January reading wrap up. I read a total of 7 books in January, so I'm really happy. Some of those were manga, some of those were comics, some of them were actual books. And just as usual, I'm going to go ahead and give you my reviews of those. The first book I finished in January that just managed to miss the tail end of December, otherwise it totally would have been in my top 10 books of 2016. But anyway, that is The Thing About Jellyfish by Ali Benjamin. I think it's Ali. This is an awesome little story. It's basically about a young girl called Susie who, upon the death of her friend who dies in a swimming accident, she kind of slowly, I want to say regress, but I feel like it's much more than that. But she gets a little bit, I guess, more obsessed rather than regress. She doesn't really go back in herself, but in a way she does. Anyway, I digress. So many words that sound similar. She gets obsessed with jellyfish and she kind of wants to prove to everyone around her how her friend couldn't have just possibly died in a swimming accident because she's the best swimmer. She must have been killed by a poisonous jellyfish. And it's just all about her findings and how it ties in with her school life and her growth as a person and how she feels about the loss of her friend and just events that led up to certain events and stuff like that. It's a really good book. I think it's definitely aimed at a middle grade audience, but nevertheless it is truly captivating. I actually saw this on Aoife's channel, which is Fred Weasley Died Laughing. Major spoiler for me as I've only just started the Harry Potter series. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't have picked this up if she hadn't done a review, so I will link her review somewhere, maybe in the description or in a card, so you can see what she thought about it. But for my thoughts, I gave this a 5 stars. I actually tweeted about it and the author responded and said basically that I made her day with my review because like I shared the link, I think, and it just made me happy as well. I absolutely loved this, as you may already be able to tell. Writing was amazing. The first chapter, that wasn't even really a chapter but just I guess a prologue, it really gave me shivers, and that was just a perfect example of the writing throughout the rest of the story, really. The character Susie, our main character, really very interesting, clearly quite an intelligent young girl, and how she uses her information to try and achieve what she needs to achieve and kind of be at peace with herself. It was just beautifully done, really well expressed. I found myself noting repetitions, but in a good way. There were subtle, powerful phrases that were repeated throughout the story, and it just, hearing it every so often in a very subtle way, almost subliminal, it just made that more impactful, I guess. And I really had a great experience reading this, and beautiful cover as well. Come on guys, that is absolutely stunning, and it's bright yellow underneath. I've just got to show you this. Look how pretty that is. That is gorgeous. So yeah, really good read if you're interested in it. I wouldn't say it's like heavily scientific or anything like that. It's just, I think anyone would enjoy this, to be honest. So yeah, I've definitely got more written about this on my Goodreads, which is always linked down below, so feel free to read that if you want to find out more about my thoughts. But I feel like I've been talking about this for ages. Let's go on to the next book. The next thing I read was Rosario Vampire Volume 7. I also picked up the 8th one. I gave this a 1 star. It was the lowest rating I believe that I've given any of the mangas, and I really feel like this series has declined. The further I read, the worse it's getting. I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again now, I've picked up this series many a times throughout my years, and I think I've always stopped around the 6th volume. Not because I've been bored or anything, but just because I haven't had access, or I just forgot about it because I read it online, or maybe my friend that had the manga, I just didn't ask her for the rest of it. It was just excuses that got in the way. Anyway, so last year in my mind, I don't know if I verbally said it, but I was determined to not necessarily finish them all in that year. There's like 2 seasons to it, so 2 series of Rosario Vampire that I'm aware of, and I wanted to finish them, at least the first one, maybe not the second one, I don't know. So that's kind of just been dragged over to this year as well, and I'm just not really enjoying them as much as I used to. The formulaic kind of structure of the story is getting tedious. It's getting too obvious, like the plot and everything's just really predictable, and I didn't really enjoy this one at all. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. A lot of it did feel like filler, but I do think if you are reading the series, you can't just skip it. You need to know a little bit of what's going on, but other than that, it's just not a very good volume. But by the way, that's by, I can't pronounce it, I'm so sorry, Akihisa Aikida. I'm so sorry if that's butchered, it probably is, I don't know. Anyway, so to pick me up after that, I decided to finally start my journey in the Harry Potter world by picking up Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. But yeah, I've done a whole vlog and review of this. If you want to watch, I'll list those somewhere in the video or the description. I did a 2-part vlog I think it's spanning over about maybe about a week, and then in the last vlog I have a full review. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm just going to say that now. I'm not going to talk too much about it because, as I said, I've got those videos all about it already. A few people have said that they've wanted me to carry on vlogging my reading experience, and even when I get around to watching the films they want me to do reviews of them, so I think I'll get around to doing that when I next pick up the series. But yeah, for now I really did enjoy this. Oh, and I gave it a 4.5 stars, so yeah, great stuff. And these editions are beautiful, really lovely. Yeah. Now after that I decided to pick up and sort of test the waters a little bit, try out something a bit different, and I went for The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I don't know again how to pronounce it, I'm so sorry. This is described to be kind of literary fiction translated from the Korean, I believe, by Deborah Smith, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, by Deborah Smith. I've not read anything like this before, and I saw it on MercysBookishMusings channel. I can't remember if she enjoyed it or not, but I also saw it in Stephen from Aoife Books did a collab with a young lady, I can't remember her name, and she was doing like booktube for a day sort of thing, and she was just reviewing this book, and I thought it sounded even more interesting, so I picked it up fairly recently, and me and Chloe have kind of been reading it around the same time. I'm not sure if she's finished yet, but this was an interesting read to say the least. So we're basically following different perspectives surrounding a young woman called, I'm going to butcher it, Howdee-haie. That's how I've been saying it in my head. I'm not too sure. I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, which I probably am. And we're kind of seeing her spiral further and further into something not quite human, if that makes sense. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't a fantasy or anything like that. It's not a literal sense, but more in her mind. She wants to become less of a fleshy prison, which I think is I think that's a quote from the book somewhere. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure someone says something like that along those lines. And it's kind of her decline from humanity, if that makes sense, through the eyes of family members. And I think the way it was written was really, really interesting. I did want to do a full review of this, but I think my Goodreads review is quite detailed enough, and I don't really understand fiction as a whole well enough to give a cohesive, intelligent review of something like this. Do you know what I mean? So I think I'm just going to leave it at the fact that I did enjoy it. It was very different. The writing style was interesting. I've got more detail in that review if you do want to see it. I gave it a 5-star, and I think it's one of those books where even if you don't understand the ins and outs of it, like you don't grasp all the meanings, I think it still gives you some sort of effect, for me at least, and it left me feeling, I wouldn't say awakened because I don't want to go through the events that our character went through, but it made me feel something and it stayed with me for quite a while. And I finished this a few weeks ago, so it's still stuck in my head. I think it's going to be something that stays with me for a long time, and that's why, as well as some other points, it gets a 5 stars. So that's it for the physical books that I have to show you. We're going to go on to more ebooks now and manga. So the next manga, as I briefly mentioned already, was Rosario Vampire Volume 8. And this one was, you know, a little bit better than the Volume 7 that I really, really disliked. This one got a 3-star, and obviously you guys know I can't talk too much in depth about these manga because they are in a series. I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, this definitely had more improvement. I just enjoyed it a little bit better, but still I am seeing the same problems. I am still finding it a tedious task getting through this series at the moment. Apparently season 2 is much better. My friend Charlotte, who used to loan me some of the mangas, said this series she didn't enjoy too much either, which I didn't know because she's always like going on about Rosario Vampire even now. So I don't know, yeah, I'm gonna take her word for it because she knows a thing or two about good manga. And the next 2 books that I'm going to quickly review are from NetGalley. So I picked up Mer by Joelle Selner. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Again, I'm not very good with pronunciations, and I have the worst name to pronounce, so I feel like it's my duty to get names right, but it's such a struggle sometimes. Anyway, this was a graphic novel, as the title would suggest, about mermaids, in a sense. Basically following this family who moved from one area to another, I think after a traumatic kind of death in the family, and we're following one of the main teen girls as she goes to this new school and makes new friends and stuff like that, and she develops a crush on some mermaid basically. Now I gave this a 2 stars and I definitely found some issues with it. I will say generally it was enjoyable. I guess fast paced, sometimes that was a problem, which I think I'll get into in a bit, and I definitely get into in the Goodreads review. But yeah, I'm just going to talk through some of the issues that I found, unfortunately. So at first I struggled to kind of read from the mermaid's point of view, or the mer character's point of view, because I'm assuming in my head maybe they had, I don't know, English as not their first language, so there was that break in conversation. But for me that hindered my reading experience, because not that it's an issue at all, it's just about flow of reading, so please don't take this the wrong way, but they would say things quite stunted. They would say I am and talk in long roundabout ways rather than saying the actual thing, in my opinion. And when we had the human characters, they would just say I'm not blah 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 blah. That they would just abbreviate it, and it just made the conversation flow quicker and more natural. Whereas the mermaid people, they would say things in the longer way, and it just felt unnatural and stunted. Although I do say that might be because English perhaps was not their first language, you know, in this mythical world, I don't think it came across as natural, if you know what I mean. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not offended anyone, because I really don't mean it in a derogatory way or anything like that. Anyway, that was one issue I found. Another one was that everything progressed really quickly. So I mentioned it was fast paced, yeah, that's good, you know, in terms of action and stuff and things going on, but I jumped from one scene to the next thinking I had missed a complete different scene in general. Like, I felt like I had missed a lot, because the next panel people were going out and people were not friends, and I'm like, I feel like I've missed something, you know. So I don't know. There are a few other issues, but I won't get into that here. This video is going to be way too long. It probably already is. But yeah, that's just my little thoughts on this, and I don't think I would pick this up or necessarily recommend it unless major changes would be made, because it just didn't really generally interest me, although I did overall found it enjoyable at some points, you know. Yeah, bit contradicting, but what can I say, I'm a contradictive person. Last one I read, again from Knit Galley, so thank you to the publishers. I forgot to say thank you to the publishers before, but yeah, thank you. Of course, this doesn't alter my opinion, you guys know that. Can you tell I'm getting a bit tired now, and I'm really really thirsty. I feel like I haven't drunk in hours, so I'm getting to that deteriorating state right now of mind and body. But anyway, the last book I read in January was The Vets at Hope Green, Part 1, Escape to the Country by Sheila Norton, and oh my god, I'm still shocked even now at how much I adored this book. So this is basically a nice countryside story, kind of described as chick lit and romance. I know, me reading those kind of things, I rarely pick them up unless it's in a fantasy. Like, I just don't reach for those kind of books. I never think they interest me, but whoa, this one, it grasped me, and I think it grasped me because of the title being vets, because that's what I'm interested in. That's kind of like my degree is centering around animals, so when I see something like that in the title, regardless of what it's about, apparently I'm interested. As I was saying before I started going off on a tangent, this is about a woman called Sam who works at Vets in London. She's finding life a bit run down at the moment. Her boyfriend doesn't really understand her. He kind of shoots down her dreams of a country house in a village with loads of animals, loads of kids, and she's just feeling detached from everything really. So she ends up spending Easter break with her nan in a lovely village called Hope Green, and she just kind of goes on her journey there. It wasn't as heavily impacted with romance as I was hoping, like as I was expecting, which I'm happy for, but it was a nice ratio there. We were just really kind of following Sam and her journey and what she's going to do next, sort of thing. I do think I'm going to do a full review of this. I don't really have anything spoilery to talk about, but it will just mainly be some of the points fleshed out that I mentioned in my Goodreads review in video form. If that interests anyone, I'll probably have that out eventually. So yeah, I don't want to go into too much depth now, even though I probably have, but I've got quite a bit more to say, so I'm not gonna say it all now, if that makes sense. But yeah, I gave this a 5-star, and I really can't get over how much I enjoyed that book. It was just so quaint. Quaint is the perfect word. It was just, you know when someone says something's nice, but in English the teacher's always like, don't say nice, it's a boring word. Well, this was nice, but not in a boring way. I guess it was more, sort of pleasant. It was a pleasant book to read, so yeah, it just makes me happy, and I've suggested to a few people, and my friend Charlotte from Beadle Books really enjoying it at the moment, and my friend Maria, she's really looking forward to starting it. She downloaded it the other day, so she's going to start that soon, and I hope she enjoys it, and I hope everyone else enjoys it if you decide to pick it up. But anyway, I'm getting really rambly, so I am going to leave you now, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you've been reading in January, and also if you want to join me in my fantastical February reading month, feel free to just let me know what you're reading and stuff like that. Basically, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to my other video, which is my fantastical February TBR. I will link that around too, so you can know a bit more about what I'm talking about, if it's not very obvious right now. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.